Chief Roro Williams had always believed in the power of old bonds, friendships forged in the fire of youth, tested by time. He and Governor Dayo Ahmed were once inseparable back at the University of Lagos. Roommates, confidants, and brothers in all but blood. They shared everything, from meals to dreams, and even the same worn-out mattress when their room overflowed with other struggling students. Now, decades later, life had taken them on different paths, one into politics, the other into philanthropy. Armed with Ademola's glowing testimonials and the goodwill of his NGO partners, Chief Roro booked a private meeting at the Lagos State Government House. The governor welcomed him with warm smiles, back slaps, and laughter that echoed through the marble halls. "Ah, Roro, my man, how long has it been?" The moment was light, hopeful. Until Chief Roro cleared his throat and gently introduced the purpose of their visit. "There's a young man in Kirikiri, Dr. Ademola Komolafe. I believe he's innocent. Even if not, he's been a light in the darkness there. He's helped dozens, perhaps hundreds. We came to plead for a second look at his case." The room shifted instantly. The governor's smile faded, replaced with a deep frown. "What did you say?" Chief Roro repeated his words cautiously. The governor rose slowly from his chair, eyes flaring. "You mean the same Ademola Komolafe, AK-47, who murdered my only son, that devil in a white coat? Dayo, I understand your pain. Don't you dare speak as if you understand. You come here to beg for a killer. My son's blood cries out for justice." Before Roro could explain further, the governor banged his fist on the desk. "He'll rot in that cell, and the day they bring his death sentence to me, I'll sign it with joy." The guards entered at once. The governor pointed toward the door. "Get them out, all of them, now." Roro and his stunned entourage were thrown out like common miscreants. Outside, silence hung heavy. Hope had been crushed, and a dark cloud loomed once again over Ademola's fate. Within the cold walls of Kirikiri Maximum Prison, Ademola Komolafe continued to shine like a flicker of hope in a place wrapped in despair. Though fear of the unknown haunted his thoughts, especially the governor's looming decision, he didn't let it paralyze him. He poured himself into what he knew best: service. Every morning, he led worship in the small prison chapel, his voice rising like incense, drawing the weary and the broken. Inmates found peace in his messages, healing in his prayers, and comfort in his songs. Those who once scoffed at religion now sat quietly in the pews, heads bowed. Ademola didn't stop at his Christian brethren. During Muslim prayer hours, he walked past the prison mosque respectfully, often encouraging his Muslim counterparts to hold on to faith. "Let no man lose his path, whatever road he walks," he'd say to them with a calm smile. He had become more than just an inmate. He was a counselor, a medic, a pastor, a peacemaker. Even prison wardens often leaned on his wisdom when tempers flared among inmates. Yet, behind every song he led, behind every hand he held in prayer, was a silent battle, a gnawing fear of the day the warrant might come. But until that day, he would labor, he would serve, he would believe, even in the shadow of fear. The evening was quiet as Kemi returned from her boutique. Her feet were sore, her back ached, and her belly felt unusually heavy. She smiled faintly at Mama Mojisola, who had already warmed her food, but Kemi had no appetite. She just wanted to lie down. "Let me rest small," she muttered, easing herself onto the bed beside her mother-in-law. Mojisola watched her with concern, but said nothing. Kemi had been unusually quiet all day. Night fell. The compound faded into silence, and sleep crept into their room. Then, the dream came. Kemi found herself standing in a massive, intimidating hall. The governor sat on a golden chair at the center, fury written all over his face. His voice thundered, "Bring me the file. Let me sign his death warrant now. Let him rot. He took my son." "No, please, Your Excellency," Kemi screamed, throwing herself on the floor before him, weeping. "He didn't do it. Ademola is innocent, please." Her sobs echoed through the hall, but the governor stood up, reached for a pen, and brought it close to the paper. "No!" Kemi's cry burst from her throat. Beside her, Mama Mojisola sat up in a panic. Kemi was sweating heavily, muttering, gasping, her face contorted in fear. Kemi!
Mojisola shook her gently. "Wake up!" Kemi jolted awake, disoriented and drenched in sweat. Tears clung to her lashes. She looked around, clutched her belly, and gasped again. "Mama, it's time. I think the baby is coming." In seconds, the small apartment turned to chaos. Mama Mojisola rushed to call Bimbo, who slept in the city room. Akin, their ever-reliable neighbor, was banging on the door within minutes, car keys in hand. As they helped Kemi into the back seat, she gripped her mother-in-law's hand tightly, whispering between the waves of pain. "God will not let that dream come to pass. He won't let it happen." Mojisola nodded, tears brimming. "He won't, my daughter, he won't." And off they sped into the night, chasing a miracle beneath the weight of faith and fear.
The atmosphere in the governor's private residence was heavy with silence. The once flamboyant leader now sat on his leather armchair, staring blankly at the ceiling. His phone buzzed endlessly. Calls from party leaders, members of the state assembly, and allies he had trusted now turning against him one after the other. Whispers of impeachment were no longer rumors. They were headlines. The local government chairmanship election had been a disaster. The opposition had swept almost every seat. His political party had already suspended him indefinitely, citing misconduct and negligence. His face sagged, his eyes hollow. Everything was falling apart. "Call Alpha Musa," he ordered his aide quietly. Within an hour, Alpha Musa arrived at the governor's residence. The aged cleric, clad in a white kaftan and a white skull-cap Muslim kufi, quietly unrolled his small Persian prayer rug and sat cross-legged. With a solemn face, he pulled out his tasbih, prayer beads, and began to recite softly, then looked up. "Your spirit is troubled, Excellency," the cleric said calmly. The governor exhaled, nodding slowly. "Why is this happening to me? What have I done to deserve all this disgrace? My name is being dragged in the mud. My son, he's gone, and now this?" Alpha Musa continued his prayer, then closed his eyes briefly. "Do you remember? Years ago, before you became governor, you sought help from forbidden places. You made promises to powers you should never have touched. I warned you then." The governor shifted uneasily. "The death of your son was foretold. A mysterious death, it was said. You thought your power would protect him, but destiny cannot be bribed." Tears threatened the governor's eyes. "So, what do I do now?" The cleric raised a finger. "There is only one way out. Show mercy where you have withheld it. Forgive whom you have vowed never to forgive. Let go of your grudges and pride. That is the only way to find peace and maybe redemption." The governor sat still. His mind immediately conjured the image of Ademola Komolafe, AK-47, the man in prison whom he had vowed to destroy. He remembered the day Chief Roro Williams, his old friend and brother from their university days, came pleading for Ademola, and how, in his rage, he had humiliated him, thrown him out like a beggar. And now, this same friend might hold the key to making things right. That night, he called Chief Roro. "Brother," the governor's voice was low, humbled. I am sorry for what happened last time. I acted out of pain and anger. Please, can you come and see me? I want to talk." Roro didn't respond at first, but his heart softened. "I will come tomorrow morning." At the governor's house the next day, they sat together in the governor's private study, just like old times. "I have done a lot of wrong," the governor admitted, "and I have learned the hard way, about fate, about mercy. Tell me again about this young man, Ademola." Chief Roro shared once more all that Ademola had done, saving inmates, preventing suicides, offering medical aid, and leading prayers behind bars. "I want to grant him amnesty right now," the governor finally said, his voice firm. Tears glistened in Roro's eyes. "Thank you, brother." And with a single signature, the tide turned for Ademola Komolafe.
If you enjoyed this story, please tap the like button, leave a kind comment, share it with someone you care about, and gently hit subscribe so you don't miss the next beautiful African folktale.
In the quiet town of Isein, whispers began to spread like wildfire. Mama Bisi is confessing. The same Mama Bisi who helped deliver Ademola Komolafe when he was born, now frail and sunken in age, had suddenly become the center of town gossip. The old woman, hunched over with shaking hands and cloudy eyes, had been muttering strange things for days. But on one eerie evening, as neighbors gathered outside her faded bungalow, Mama Bisi's voice rang out with unnatural strength. "I am a witch!" she screamed, startling even the bravest men among the crowd. "I destroyed the destiny of that boy, Ademola Komolafe. Oh, I saw his star. It was too bright, too powerful. It shined beyond the sky. We, myself and those in our coven, we couldn't let it blossom. He was born for greatness. That boy, he was chosen by the heavens. So we turned his path. We scattered his glory." Women covered their mouths in shock. Children picked from behind their mothers. Men clenched their fists in fury. But before they could act, the elders of the community intervened. "No," one elder said firmly, "we must not spill blood in vengeance. Let justice take its course." Mama Bisi, now trembling and exhausted, was taken to the Bali's palace, where the council of elders sat to deliberate on her fate. She barely spoke a word again. The weight of her confession and the power of the truth had crushed her spirit. But Nemesis, ever patient, dealt the final blow. Before dawn the next morning, Mama Bisi passed away quietly in her sleep within the walls of the Bali's palace, her secrets finally exposed, her guilt dragging her to the grave. And the people of Iseyin were left to reckon with the truth, that even in the shadows, justice walks slowly, but it always arrives.
The first light of dawn spread softly across the Nigerian prison yard, glinting off the rusted iron bars and the dew-damp concrete. The compound stirred slowly to life, some inmates sweeping, others murmuring prayers. Outside the gate, Mama Mojisola approached, her long gown brushing lightly against her ankles as she walked briskly. Her heart thumped with excitement, her lips whispering thanksgiving. She clutched her handbag close, eager to share the news burning in her chest. Inside, Ademola sat quietly in a corner of his cell, his one Bible open on his lap. The faint light from the barred window touched his face as he read aloud in low tones. Moments later, Mojisola was ushered through the narrow corridor, leading to the visitation booth. The walls echoed with the sound of her sandals as a warder called out, "Komolafe, visitor!" One of the inmates hurried off to fetch him. Ademola entered the booth, eyes widening as he saw his mother's radiant face through the glass partition. He sat, heart racing. "Ademola," she began, voice trembling with joy, "you're a father. Kemi has given birth to a baby boy." For a moment he froze, then leapt to his feet, hands lifted. "Glory to God!" he shouted, dancing and singing. His joy echoed through the corridor. Inmates and warders nearby rushed in, drawn by the noise. Soon the booth filled with laughter, songs and handshakes, everyone celebrating the prisoner who had just become a father.
By evening, as the sun dipped low behind the grey walls of Kirikiri Prison, the atmosphere remained vibrant with the morning celebration. Ademola, still basking in the news of his newborn son, sat with a distant smile on his face, lost in the thought of fatherhood and freedom, even if that freedom was only in his imagination. Suddenly, the clang of boots echoed across the corridor. Two senior wardens approached, flanked by a prison officer holding a brown envelope. The inmates watched in silence as they halted before Ademola. "Ademola Komolafe," one of the wardens called out. He stood slowly, unsure of what to expect. By the directive of the governor of Lagos State, the officer announced, unfolding a stamped document, "You have been granted state amnesty, effective immediately. You are a free man." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. What? What did you say?" Ademola whispered, stunned. "You've been pardoned," the warden repeated with a smile. "You're going home, son." The entire yard erupted in cheers. Inmates screamed, clapped, and danced. Some wept openly. A few knelt in prayer. Ademola fell to his knees, speechless, tears spilling down his cheeks. From celebrating a son's birth in the morning to receiving freedom at dusk, only God could script such a miracle. As he was led out of the prison gates, Ademola looked back one last time, then forward towards a new life awaiting him. Indeed, grace had found him.
With trembling hands and a heart pounding with both joy and anxiety, Ademola stepped out of the prison gate, dressed in a clean shirt and trousers given to him by the wardens. The sun had begun its descent, casting a warm hue over the dusty horizon. He slung a black backpack over his shoulder, carrying the few belongings he had left, an old wristwatch, a tattered diary, and a faded photograph of Kemi. He had no phone, no money, and no one to call, but he had something far stronger, hope. As he walked away from the prison walls, he searched frantically through the diary for the address Kemi had once given him. Her phone number? Gone. Scribbled notes, blurred by time and tears. But one thing stood out vividly in his mind, her voice echoing, 98 Road P,
Festac Town, Lagos. He had held on to those words like a lifeline. He remembered Festac clearly. His former gang had once carried out an operation in the area. The memory wasn't pleasant, but now it felt strangely redemptive.
With a black backpack slung over his back, Ademola Molafe stepped out of the past and into the promise of something new. He had swapped the dull brown prison uniform for a crisp long-sleeved white button-down shirt, light brown chino trousers, and dark brown leather dress shoes. His beard was fuller now, his face leaner, but his gait bore quiet confidence. No one could have guessed he'd just walked out of a maximum security prison. To the unsuspecting, he looked like a wary businessman on his way home after a long day. From the crowded, noisy streets near Kirikiri, he boarded a commercial motorcycle, popularly known as an Okada. The address was still sharp in his mind, 98 Road P, Festac, Town, Lagos. As the Okada weaved through traffic, his thoughts sprinted even faster. What would he say? How would they respond? Would his son even recognize him? By the time Ademola arrived in Festac, the skies carried the warm glow of early evening and the neighborhood was quiet. At exactly 6:45 p.m., the Okada stopped in front of 98 Road P. He paid the rider and stepped off. With nervous energy, he entered Kemi's compound, heart pounding like a drum inside his chest. The door stared at him like a test of destiny. He raised his hand and knocked softly. No response. He knocked again, this time firmer. The door creaked open. It was Bimbo, Kemi's cousin. Her eyes scanned him for a moment. "Is this Mrs. Komolafe's residence?" he asked with a dry voice. She nodded cautiously. "Where is Madame?" Ademola asked, trying to steady his breath. Just then, Kemi appeared behind Bimbo. Dressed casually in a pair of red bomb shorts and a strapless tube top, she froze. "Ade!" she screamed, her voice cracking with disbelief. "Yes, it's me," he replied gently, his eyes glistening. Without hesitation, Kemi burst forward and leapt into his arms, wrapping her legs around his waist and her arms around his shoulders. She buried her face in his neck, crying, laughing, trembling all at once. Mama Mojisola came rushing from the room. Could this be real? Her eyes widened. How? When? What happened? Kemi gasped. "I was discharged. Amnesty. Chief Roro Williams. Long story, but to God be the glory." Mama Mojisola hugged her son tightly, unable to hold back her tears. They ushered Ademola into the tastefully furnished living room, small but homely. He looked around, soaking it all in. The walls painted soft cream, the small family portraits, the aroma of home. "Where is my son?" he asked with a curled smile. Mama Mojisola disappeared into the room and returned with a small bundle wrapped in a baby blue shell. She placed the infant carefully into Ademola's arms. Ademola looked at the baby's tiny face, peaceful in sleep. A tear rolled down his cheek. He looked at his mother and kissed her forehead. "Thank you, Mama." Then he turned to his wife. His voice broke. "Kemi, how do I make this up to you? I'm sorry for all you made me pass through. I love you, Oluwa Kemi. I love you with every fiber of my being." Kemi swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. "Okomi, Olowori mi, I love you too." Ademola, still cradling his son, stepped closer. He leaned in, their lips touched. He hesitated, then gave her a long, deep, soul-healing kiss, the kind only love refined by fire can give. In that moment, time stood still. A new chapter had begun. In the background, Bimbo stood watching, a smile curling on her lips. Mama Mojisola, to the right, beamed with joy. Kemi, on the left, Ademola in the middle holding the baby. A family once broken, now whole again. And love had the final word.